Hello, 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 everyone. Hey, Brat, you are number one in here tonight. Good to see you, PG. Much love. God bless. Summer Moon, Utah Wells, Miss Norway. Prayers and everyone in the chat prayers. Hey, I know they appreciate it. God bless. Much love, girl. And number two, Nanny. All right. She says much love back to you, girl. You know it. And Australia, number three. All right, PG, much love. Hey, good to see you. Hey, girlfriend, good to see you too. God bless. And Lady Q, number four. All right. Evening, everyone. Good evening to you, sweetie. God bless. All right, let me get down through here. Aw, Miss Justice, much love, PG. Hey, girl, much love to you. You know it. God bless. Hey, Jolly Life, how you doing? Carmen, how you doing, sweetie? I'm trying to get to the bottom as quick as possible, you guys. Ann, I appreciate that. God bless PG. I very much enjoyed the podcast. Thank you for all you do. Hey, I appreciate all you being here, hanging out with me. God bless. Absolutely. I appreciate that. Australia. God bless. Hey, PG's little girl, how you doing, girlfriend? Good to see you. Hey, Jane, how you doing, hon? Evening. No summer, no peace. Amen. Absolutely. Absolutely. Janet says, PG, much love to you, girl. Much love to you. Forget me not. How you doing tonight? Georgia Wild Child. Everybody that's coming in tonight. Carrie, how you doing? Audrey. I'm trying my best to get everybody I can. Hey, Ruby, how you doing? Oh, Bridget. I almost passed you up. Sorry, girlfriend. Hey, Mary, good to see you. Molly, hey, girlfriend, how you doing? Good to see you in here. We got Molly in the house. God bless. All right. I'm doing good, Mary. I'm doing good. I appreciate you asking. Sweetheart. I hope you're doing good too. God bless. Oh, that is beautiful. She's giving me a rose and a heart. Oh, girlfriend, much love to you. All right. Tonight I wanted to come in and I wanted to talk about Fred's involvement in and surrounding Summer Moon Utah Wells case. You know, I kind of had other bigger things going on with, you know, Marlena and her brothers, and we had Jimmy Long and Chad Arnold and, you know, so many other people. You know, we were on there for a second because of the gravesite, which I understand they're supposed to be trying to get something up with that. I don't know what. I will be looking into it. I will be checking into it probably after the weekend. I will be looking into that to see, you know, where that's going. And I'm sure it won't be hard to find out. And also, there's just been so much going on in the world, right? We got Jack and Lily. We've got the Idaho 4 trail that came along, and so many other things. I still haven't been able to get to, you know, some of the stuff I wanted to show everybody when it came to the Idaho 4. That was a terrible stuff that's coming out right now. a whole lot of stuff we didn't know, a whole lot of stuff we're learning. I'm going to tell you, it's a real eye opener. It's a real eye opener to, to how evil, can be lurking and you don't even know it. You don't even know. It's a very horrible and terrible thing, right? And I'm going to tell you, I've been looking over a few cases, different cases and so forth. And then they found 4 people, right, in Tennessee. 4 people have been found, unalived. A little baby left in the yard, left in the front yard, somebody's front yard in a car seat. They're pretty, like 99.9% sure that the baby, is left over from what happened, at the gruesome scene, behind where it was dropped off. And I understand there was 2 men and a woman in the vehicle that, they said that it was a woman that got out and put the baby in the yard. I don't know. Right now, that's what I'm hearing, that there was 2 men and a woman, and the woman got out, and she's the one that left the baby in the yard. So, somebody must have spotted them, dropping that car seat off. Probably wondered what they was doing, right? And I guess they, kept on going. But this ain't the first time something like that has happened, right? That ain't the first time something like that has happened. It's happened before. I'm sorry. But yeah, absolutely, it's happened before, and it'll probably happen again and again. They say that they don't think it was something random, that they truly believe that, whoever these people were that did such an evil thing, they believe the people knew them. And it's so sad because they found 3 of them together, and one of them, it looked like one of them tried to run because they was they was closer back to the road than the other 3. So either they tried to run or they tried to fight. Before, the other 3 took them farther out. But anyway, one was found in a different location than the rest, unalived as well. Yeah, it was horrible thing. But there's been a lot going on. There's a lot of, there's a lot of hate crimes going on right now as well. And TikTok, I guess, has a lot of stuff on there that's, just not, righteous as well, right? It's not righteous as well. But, you've got to let go. Sometimes you got to let go and just let God have it, right? Just let go and let God have it. But it's very important, at the time right now, we're living in a time right now where, these people are they're off the wall, to say the least. They're off the wall, you guys. And you've got to, if you're going, regardless to where you're at, you really need, to take some defense classes. You need to, be very aware of your surroundings. You need to, keep your doors and windows locked down. You need to, make sure that you're, ready for whatever may come at all times, because you just don't know. You don't know the people around you. You don't know, the people who, the cases I've been looking over, like Colbert, he had been watching. He had been watching these people for a time. I mean, they know that because his phone was pinging in that area. His phone kept pinging in that area, and like 20 sometimes he was in that area, scoping and looking around, and or even more. I heard about the 20 sometimes, but it could have been more than that. Who knows? He might have not had his phone on all every time he was in there. So we don't really know how much he was in that area, watching up these girls and everything. So with that being said, and I was watching another case where, somebody was taking pictures of a little girl, right, in the back of the parents' home. And I guess the lady, got a package, and she opened the package up at like 17 years after her daughter disappeared. And there's a camera in the box, right? A video, like a old video camera. And she was, going through it. And there was a ton of pictures, of the person, taking all these pictures of her daughter, and had been watching her daughter, and everything else. And by the pictures, you could tell that her daughter knew whoever the person was that, walked off with her. And they had been, watching and taking pictures and doing stuff, for a minute before they decided to abduct her child. But oh, that is so true, Carmen. He did. He looked straight creepy, didn't he? Oh my gosh. Like, I don't know what made his forehead, like he had like a Frankenstein forehead, right? It like protruded out, and then his eyes sit down underneath it. It was like his eyebrows was way out here, and his eyeballs were way back there. It was like, whoa. And he was given like these wild looks, and then when the people were talking, he would, flinch the muscle just in his mouth, or and he did you see where he drawed a black heart? He had this black heart laying on the table, and you have to wonder, was he saying he's got a black heart, or was he saying that, somebody inside the house, he felt they had a black heart? Or maybe did he draw the black heart because somebody testified against him that he didn't think would testify? You're supposed to have been for me, not against me, type thing. It is hard telling why, he drawed that black heart, but he definitely drawed a black heart and had it laying there, where his counsel was sitting. And I found that to be kind of weird, but it definitely had a message attached to it. It had a message attached to it. Will we ever know what that message was? Who it was for? Himself, one of the victims, or one of the people testifying? I don't know, but it definitely packed a message, and a heavy one. I tell you what, I'm so glad I don't live in Tennessee, Kentucky, or Arkansas. Right? Exactly. I, Tennessee, let me tell you, they're pretty vicious. In Tennessee, you better protect yourself, because I'm going to tell you what, you don't protect yourself, you might not have no protection at all. And a lot of a lot of places seem to be getting that way, right? A lot of places seem to be um, getting that way as well. Matter of fact, our vice president came out because um, there is, um, uh, a hate crimes happening, right? Um, and where these gang of kids, you know, um, attacked an older man, and they attacked an older lady, and and yes, they are targeting one Pacific race, and and it's it's horrible. It's horrible. you know I could say a whole lot about that, but I'm going to leave it alone. you know Sometimes it's best to leave you know a sleeping dog lay, and instead of waking it up and bringing it to life. But it's a mess. It's a mess in this world, and it is getting worse and worse and worse. And and somebody's got to stop it. Somebody's got to intervene, right? A law enforcement's got to get off their backsides. They got to step it up. They've got to start intervening, and and all of this stuff. They need to hire more law enforcement, put more law enforcement out on the streets, and they need to go back. We have no time to go forward anymore. We got to go back. We got to go back to where, when, like New York City, when law enforcement walked the streets, right? And if you got out of line, well, you wish you didn't. And it's just got to go back like that. You know, we've got to stop. We've got to stop listening and following evilness, and you know, start turning ourselves back to righteousness again. And we've got to stop, being on the wrong side of everything. We've got to get on the right side of stuff, and, and cheer on the people that, getting these criminals and these evil people, off the streets into the courthouses, and out of the courthouses into the prisons. And I'm in full agreements with, with building more prisons, and more, more places for mental health as well. If that's where they need to go, well, that's where they need to go. I'm going to tell you, like I said last night, as far as Ryan goes, I don't think I don't think he's going to video someone's child without their consent. I think it was like a message, I think that maybe they wanted everyone to see, this beautiful child that, that Don Wells just shows up out of nowhere, and, on a dead end road, right? On a dead end road, just comes out of nowhere to a dead end road, and, like he's sending a message to these people. I didn't think of that. Actually, I was on the phone with Don Wells on that particular day. And when he pulled up and, talked to that little girl, and then went up to the house with her and found the grandfather sleeping, and no one else was there, and the little girl was unattended with a sleeping grandfather. I remember that as clear as day. And I remember the old man waking up saying, "Who are you and what are you doing in my house?" And I remember Don trying to talk to him, and the man was really really upset. And Don said, I'll call you back. And I don't know what conspired between him and the older gentleman at that point, because he didn't call me back until, he was back down by his vehicle. And I didn't hear him tell the little girl. I heard that he told the little girl, I'll see you later. And that don't sound right to me. I kind of wondered, why did you tell that little girl that when after I heard it from her mother and the people there. I thought to myself, why? I didn't hear him say it, so he must have said it, before he got back to the car when I wasn't on the phone. And because I would have told him, what the hell you mean you'll see her later? That don't make no sense. But, and I might have, been able to put 2 and 2 together then, that somebody knew something, and that just wasn't a random thing for Don, to see. But I didn't hear that part, because like I said, he called me back from once he got to the vehicle. And I heard him get inside the vehicle. I heard him shut the door. I asked him, what conspired with him and the grandfather. And he said, the grandfather, I guess said, it's not none of your business. And what was you doing, coming up here, with my granddaughter and so forth and so on. I guess, the old man didn't take it so well. And the old feller did tell his, the girl's mother when she returned back. I don't know where she was, but she wasn't there. And, but I think it was a message, especially when he told the little girl, I'll see you later. That's Roy Cotton's family. That's Roy's family there. And, I think there was a message. I think Roy Cotton did know something, in my opinion. That's my opinion. I think Roy did hold knowledge, a lot of knowledge about, all the talk and everything that was going on between these people up there on Ben Hill Road. I think Roy was up there enough that, he was schooled about, who sold what, who was doing this, who was doing that, all the things going on up and down that road there that he was hanging on, especially if he was hanging with Fred Hill. Because Fred tells everything. Fred is like an old woman when it comes to talking. He's like an old lady. He really talks a lot. Most men don't overly talk. Women do. Gossiping. Men usually talk about, cars and trucks and, jobs and stuff like that, the price of haircuts and, the weather, politics, religion. They talk about different stuff. They're not gossipers. Men usually don't sit around and talk about, who's doing this and who's doing that and, and gossip like old ladies. But Fred Hill does. Fred Hill definitely gossips. Like, he would definitely fit in at a hen sitting, right? If he was at a hen sitting, he'd definitely fit in. That's for sure. Yeah, right, Molly? That he does. That's true, Amanda. That's true. Ryan finds truth. He's the guy. He was here for a minute. He came over here for a minute, and said they were him and his wife was Christians and stuff, and then next thing I know, they were doing woo-woo things, and I can't support that, right? I can't support that. And but yeah. Oh, absolutely, Denny. I'm going to tell you, I always, like, um, if, if me and my kids are out, cause I homeschool, my kids don't go to school, but like if we're, coming home from someplace, when school's letting out, I will like drive if I see, like if I see kids walking home from school and I noticed that, cars done went around, came by and then came back by, um, I will, at that point, um, stop and watch to make sure the kids get to where they're going safe. Um, I also, like, if I'm at a grocery store or something, I come out, get my vehicle and I'm leaving, and I see maybe a woman, walking by herself, or an older gentleman walking by himself somewhere, or, you know, a woman with children, packing groceries, because they don't have a vehicle and they're walking, back. I take my time. I take my time, I wait for them, to get out of the store parking lot. And then I sometimes, go and wait to make sure that, that they're getting where they need to be. Um, and, before I go on, to make sure they're safe. Um, I've done that. I've done that a few times. Matter of fact, there was a couple of undesirable young people. I say young adults, um, male. They were male, young adults. And this one mother, she's walking, she had a child and she was coming from the grocery store. And, you could tell that they were just waiting to, do something to someone. The way they were lurking, in the shadows, like behind, other buildings, um, would move to, to like a tree and stuff like that, some bushes. And, and I spotted them right away. And then here comes this young mother and she's walking in that direction. And yes, I did. I started my car up immediately, and I did, back out and let her and the child and, them go before me. And I, just made sure that, these undesirables, and it was like after dark in the evening, but I let them know, PG, she's talking about Fred saying he watched Roy with, the money so he didn't get robbed. Roy didn't need Fred. Oh yeah. But yeah, anyway, yeah, I watched this young lady get to safety, she lived in a, uh, like apartment complex not far. And, I made sure her and the child, so I mean, I watch people, for their own good, not because I'm not stalking her, um, got some type of weird motive in mind. That's insane. But um, Ryan said that he didn't believe in woo woo stuff. His wife does the woo woo. He's out there doing it with her. When you get married to somebody, you two become one, and he's partaking in it. He, like if she gets this feeling like with the twisted tea can, for instance, that I truly believe she drank and threw down and went back to see if there was one more drink left. I truly believe that happened. That's my opinion. because that can was too clean. You could tell, you could tell it had been in somebody's pocket and sucked down and just barely throwed down on that ground. There was no dirt on it, no dents in it, nothing. And if it had, it like a brand new Twisted Tea can, the person had to just dropped it when she picked it up. That would have been just weird. But, she disappeared over in that area and then came back later and then wanted to go back, like she had a vision and found the can. And I believe it was her own can. I think that, and they're not too good. They're not too good at what they do, because that didn't fool me. But the point being is, I think there was a message being sent. I think a message was being sent to that family, that Cotton needed to keep his mouth shut. I think Cotton did know Candace and Donald. I think Cotton knew Andy and Jody Sue. I think Cotton knew all of them people. If you know Fred Hill, you know everybody. There's like nobody you don't know if you know Fred Hill, because everybody knew Fred. Everybody knew Fred. And, and all of these people were affiliated with one another. And so, yeah, Ryan does partake in, what his wife does. And if you're a true Christian person, if you're really truly a Christian, you won't even let that, you won't let that stuff near your house or anyone that affiliates themselves with it. You're like, you gotta stay out of here, devil. You don't even want those people in your home. You don't even want them to step on your property, right? It's like, get out of here. No, because they bring bad energy. They bring bad energy, and you don't want that stuff. You don't want that stuff housing your home up, right? Nah, they got to go. But he partakes in it. Matter of fact, a good Christian man wouldn't even be with a woman that does that kind of stuff. He wouldn't be with her. Yeah, right. Right, Tiffany, sure. I believe that too. I gotta agree with you. But anyway, we've been going over so much stuff that Fred kind of slipped through the cracks on us there for a second, and but he tells too many. Him and Ziggy's came back around, and I'll tell you what got me upset is I actually heard Fred with my own ears say that, it wasn't the day that Cotton, it wasn't that day that Cotton was found deceased that he was at my place. It was the day before. I know. I'll tell you exactly what happened. Cotton was at Fred's house on the day that the evening that Cotton, passed away. That day he had been at Fred Hill's house. He went to Fred's place and he went with a lot of money. He had stopped at a gas station where I can't tell you the names of the people, but I do know them. Two people witnessed. They seen Cotton. Matter of fact, they knew Cotton. They liked Cotton, and they were talking to Cotton. And when they was talking to Cotton, he was at the gas station. He had gotten a whole bunch of cigarettes, and they seen him inside his car on the front seat. he had all these cigarettes, and they was, and they mentioned it. They said, "Hey man, where you get all those cigarettes? What'd you get all those cigarettes for?" And he was laughing because, you know, he had just got out. He had just got out of, jail and everything. And he went to the bank. He had, a lot of money built up in the bank because, he was retired. He was retired, and he had all his money going in there, what little time he was in jail. He had a lot of money built up in there. And he had stopped at the bank and I guess took out a pretty good sum of money that day. And he, and he was getting him a lot of cigarettes because he hadn't, really got a whole lot of cigarettes in jail, right? So he got him a bunch of cigarettes and he was heading to Fred's place and he told these guys that he was heading to Fred's and, gonna go hang out with Fred. And they was like, "Oh, cool, man, see you later." So anyhow, he ended up at Fred's house, and Fred, it was supposed to be Fred and Laura, the only ones there when Cotton was there. But now Fred says there was another guy at his house, not Laura, another guy there too, besides him and Laura. And anyhow, because the way I heard it at the beginning was that, that Cotton was up there and he was partying with Fred and Laura and doing some, stuff he shouldn't be doing. And then, supposedly they thought they was going to have to give him a ride home. And, he left, according to Laura. Cotton left and they found him, the next morning where he was, deceased at. But he got deceased the night before. He'd been there all night. He had been there the whole night. And according to, law enforcement and the family, some of the family I've talked to, he was supposed to have been there all night. So anyway, I said, "Oh," and then I talked to Fred, and Fred said, "No, he was up there. He was at my house, and he was wanting to talk about, me and some other guys were going to go in on a boat. They were going to, Fred and a couple of his other buddies are supposed to be, going to get a fishing boat." And I guess Cotton asked if he could pitch in on that fishing boat too. And according to Fred, and Fred said, "Oh, I don't know, man. We already, me and the other guys done got the money up. I don't know if they want somebody else coming in on it and all this stuff." And to be honest with you, I think here's how it went. I think Fred and Laura tried to pitch a fishing boat shit to Cotton, trying to swindle him up out. "Come on, man, you could pitch in on this fishing boat, all of us, and we can get a fishing boat." And when Cotton wasn't buying it, and he's like, "Nah, man, I'm not going," because he pulled his money out to pay Fred, right, for what Fred dishes out up there. And because Fred ain't gonna, give it to him for free. And Fred saw that all that money that he had, and then probably, try to get him to buy into some fishing boat bullshit. And Cotton said no. And then, personally, I think, Cotton did party with them and, and get under the influence of the stuff that, Fred dishes out. And what I believe happened was, he was pretty messed up, really messed up. And I think that more than likely, I don't even know if Cotton drove his own vehicle, because I heard Laura, something about Laura was found inside of Cotton's vehicle, according to a family member. And they wanted to know why Laura was driving Cotton's car. And I think possibility that, Fred had Laura drive Cotton like they was doing him a, good deed. And Fred probably followed behind, maybe with another guy, And I think, and they didn't take Cotton to his house. I think they took him, wherever that was. And at that cemetery, his vehicle's supposed to have been found by some cemetery where his mother's buried. And it sounds like, they got him in that area and, maybe told him they was going to stop there to walk him around, to sober him up or to walk him around. I don't know why the hell they would take him there. Maybe, he was messed up and maybe talking about his mother and they're like, well, we'll stop by and at the cemetery. I don't know. Just something to do with that cemetery. But something's supposed to be in with the cemetery, I don't know if it's I thought it was his mother buried there. Maybe it was somebody else buried there. I don't know, but it's something with this cemetery. And anyway, that's where his vehicle was found. And, it's funny that he's at Fred's house, right? Fred told me that him and another guy followed Cotton, up to where Cotton lives, at the top. And then they seen him turn towards some family's house. And they said, Fred said they turned around and came back to Fred's place. I don't believe that. Cotton went to the bank, got his money. He went to the place, got his cigarettes. I don't think Cotton's afraid to drive home by himself. He drove to Fred's house by himself that day, and he drove to Fred's house many other times, to hang out and party. And he drove himself home all of those other times. And I'm sure he had money then too. And, just this particular time, Fred decides to follow him. Make that make sense. Right? And Fred was the only one that knew where the injury was that actually caused him to be on live, because law enforcement didn't ever release it. They didn't ever tell no one what caused this man's, where that blow was that caused this man to be, not with us any longer. But Fred knew it. And let us remember, they gave Fred a polygraph that he didn't pass on Cotton's case, right? And supposedly they were asking him about another victim's case as well. He wouldn't tell nobody who it was, but obviously they, supposed to got a polygraph on another victim as well. And I think that was Summer if he did. If he got polygraphed on another victim, I truly believe it was Summer. What do you think? Put a 1 in the chat if you think it was Summer. Because there was no other victims. There wasn't any other victims other than Cotton and Summer. That's elementary right there. There was no more. There wasn't any more victims. So what are they talking about? I don't know. But what did happen to Cotton? Why did it happen? I think Cotton was like getting the two birds with one stone. You got the money and you got him shut up, right? It was like getting an extra bonus to shut his mouth about what he knew on Summer's case. The money was an extra bonus. That's my opinion. And Cotton seemed to come up, he came up on the line after he had told some people in his family that Fred indeed had something to do with Summer's case. He told, people in his family, he had been talking. He had been talking, and I'm sure that, the people in his family talked, and I think it got back. I think, you know how people are, and I think it got back to Ben Hill Road, and that's what I think Don was doing at that house with that little girl, letting them know you need to keep your mouth shut. Yeah, his name is Roy Simpson, and his name, they call him Cotton Simpson. His name though is Roy Cotton Simpson. Cotton is a nickname. But Fred and Laura and Don, Candace, Grandis, Jody Sue, Andy's son, Allison's family, Hunter, Andrew, all of them are liars. All of them are evil humans, and all of them lie. Every damn one of them, they lie. And they all did nothing but seem to play games in Summer's case. And they seem to enjoy it. That's what's really sick about it all, is they seem to be enjoying it. No tears, no sadness, no mercy for this little girl, no remorse, just evil, mean, spiteful, ugly, sniggering, laughing, playing games the whole time. And you got to wonder, where does a group of humans like this, in the hell do they come from? Where did they, what hole did they crawl out of? That's, that's what I wonder. That's what I wonder. But they're damn liars. I'm going to let you hear. I might let you hear their bullshit tonight.
This crazy. I don't want to call people out their names, No, I don't like to do that. I don't do that.
Oh, the heck if she don't. The heck if she don't. She doesn't do nothing but call people out of their names, right? Even Summer. Even Summer. We heard Allison say that they called Summer, bad names. Even, we have witnesses telling how they treated those kids. I'm going to tell you, Candace ain't no stranger to calling people out their names. Just look on her damn Facebook, right? Just look on her Facebook. She says she'll do bad things to people and then help law enforcement look for them, right? She thought that was a really cool comment. That was a really cool statement, right? Some badass statement. Because that's what these people envy, is pure ignorance. They envy that kind of stuff. They're not educated to understand that, there's nothing funny about that kind of stuff. There's nothing funny about evilness at all, but they ain't got enough brains nor education, probably enough brains to blow their nose. right? Or education to live any better life than what they're doing. And it's disgusting. It's appalling. It's appalling, right? That's why people like them can't ever fit into society. They can't fit into society because, you know, their their mentality level is just way too low. They seek evilness. They don't know no better. They don't know no better. And it's a shame. It's a shame that, they're that uncouth, to be honest with you.
That stuff. This person has no right to go on another person's panel and say that I had anything to do with this guy that I have never met, didn't even know his name until just recently, didn't know where he even come from. It's
Did you hear a lie? Why are they talking? All of these guys want to act like they're pissed off at one another, but they're still having communication. They're still all having communication on through Facebook, through phone contact. They're all still, having communication with everybody else because they're all wrapped up in this together somehow. Well, of course, Ziggy's prettier than and cleaner than Laura. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I don't think so. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't think Ziggy is cleaner nor prettier than Laura. I think Laura is ran down from Fred Hill. When Fred Hill got with Laura, she was only like, I think she was still a teenager. She wasn't very old at all. And Fred, got a hold of Laura like a lot of these, savages do, right? People like him, and gets them hooked on some hard stuff. They get these young girls that are, beautiful, and they get them hooked on that hard stuff, and they take a tow on them. And Fred, that's what Fred did. That's what he did. He wanted Laura to be allocating all of her money, to what he loves to do. And the only way he could get Laura to allocate all her money to that hard stuff was to get her on it too. And that, that's what they want. That's, they want to get these girls hooked on that stuff and destroy their life. And it did. It worked. And then, when Laura ends up looking like this, right there, all washed up and washed out and fading away at a fast pace, 2 steps from, from a cemetery herself, Fred goes running off to mess up something else, right? He runs off to mess up something else. I mean, Laura wasn't Fred's first. Fred had one before Laura that I'm sure he destroyed just as good as he did Laura. And then he got with her and destroyed her, lost her kids for her and everything. His first wife lost her kids, right? And Laura lost all the kids. I mean, this is a pattern with Fred. This is a pattern with him. And, and now he's with Ziggy. He's with Ziggy, and, and it won't take long to take her down as well. I mean, I see her. Here and there on, her live or whatever, when somebody, a lot of people send me a little clip that they're saying this or saying that. And I see her. And, she's all picking and frigid and, man, you got to be on something. You got to be on something. Usually, that's, the big C word, right? It's usually what makes them, pick and do that, but also other stuff will too. There's other substances that will make them pick as well, and be all jittery and rocking back and forth and yanking at herself and picking her skin. And she picks her skin quite a bit. I see her picking her face, picking her arms, picking her, just picking. And when she gets conscious of it, she'll start pulling on her shirt sleeve or start pulling on her top, or or start fidgeting with her fucking hair for an hour, to try to, it just, people that are not substance abuse users don't do it. People who are clean and don't use any type of illegal substances, they don't act like that. They're able to, they're able to sit in a chair, and they're able to, kick back, relax, and they don't need to be, fidgeting like that. They don't need to be picking and pulling and, I mean, looking like they got, ADHD, right? That's just how it is. But she does. Just saying. Oh, you got Don Wells in the house? Everyone knows Fred is a piece of crap. Come on. Everybody knows you are too, right? Everybody knows that you are too. That's what I got to say about you, Donald. Everybody knows that Fred's a piece of crap, but they know you're a piece of crap as well. Where's Summer? I just got one question. Where's Summer? Is she over there? Is she across the road over there in that beautiful place underneath Timothy Morrison's grave? Because if she is, I got a good feeling she's not going to be there long. Because I'm sure at some point you're going to see them over there digging that all up. They're going to find out if there's a black tote down in there. And if there is, a lot of people's going to prison, right? Whole lot of people's going to prison.
It's got me so riled that I talked to you this morning. You know how I feel. I was control myself. I was in tears. It's ridiculous. It's bullcrap. And another thing I'd like to know is,
you are as well, sissy. Why the hell would I be going to prison, Donald? Why would I be going to prison? I ain't the one that went out into the water at the swimming hole, and the next thing we see is Summer on cold freaking milk jugs to try to slow down, what sets in when you're unalived. I had nothing to do with that. And I wasn't the one that came back to the house and went down and met up with Chad Arnold and then went out of Ben Hill Road onto Beach Creek following him to where? Oh, I bit over to the cemetery, right, Donald? Oh, no. You a piece of crap. Oh, now I'm a piece of crap. Right. I'm going to tell you, we all know who the pieces of crap are. And it's not a piece. It's pieces, right, Donald? It's pieces like Jody Sue and Andy and Jody Sue's son who lied about a screen for you, and then Andy Bernard who told you to drive the other vehicle so you could protect yourself with the extra alibi you loved having, right? You got 7 alibis. Candace ain't got none. She going down. You bet your ass she's going down. If there's a black toad over there underneath that gravesite, she going down. And then you guys thought you were so smart having your little memorializing summer about the time that you guys started plotting against her, right at the time you cut all her hair off, to be exact. Not on June 15th when she came up missing, but weeks before that when you actually cut her all of her hair off. I'm glad that you guys were keeping, fucking dates on when you were doing all your evil shit, Don Wells. Right? Because you allowed us to know exactly when she got her hair cut off by having that memorialization thing that went on up there. But you didn't, what you didn't expect was Don B going to the horse stables and finding them flowers. And you didn't expect, us showing up at the cemetery, Morrison Cemetery, finding the other flowers that you guys tried to hide on that grave as well, right? Out of all the graves in there, you put those flowers on Timothy Morrison. Well, I think that's enough to know that that's where the black toad is that Candace was talking about. See, she wasn't smart. She messed up and said black toad. Those were brown boxes. Those were brown boxes in the video. So that allowed us to know that when they got home and after the boys got gaslighted by running out to get groceries, seeing her sister in the vehicle and just assuming she was somewhere around there because they seen her back with Candace and Grandis. Once they got back there, they stuck her in that black tote, right? After gaslighting the boys up and seeing that they're all busy in the house playing the game machines, trying to get food, something they got very little of. Candace got real happy. Her and Granny put that child in the black tote, slid it back up in Granny's vehicle, and off went Candace down to meet Chad Arnold, who was waiting, because all of this was already pre-planned and carried out. And went right over there and put that child down in there. And that makes sense. A black tote down in that black dirt so it wouldn't be seen. You wouldn't want to put a blue tote or a red tote or something, because if somebody looks down in there or something goes wrong, you want that tote to be dark like the ground so that it nobody really takes note that is something else is in that grave. So you slide her down in there, cover it all up, in goes the vault, and then in goes the coffin on the 18th. The man gets covered up and won't ever be able to rest properly because he's got a secret underneath him that needs to be found, brought out of there, and some justice served. Right, Don Wells? I must be speaking some truth or you wouldn't have your lousy ass in here. No one did shit. And you say all you do is talk. Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you something, Don Wells. Your ass don't do nothing but lie. At least I talk the truth, unlike you, right? Do you know, Don Wells, how hot hell is? Do you know that people who sit around with other people and plot against their own 5-year-old innocent daughter, their own 5-year-old innocent little girl who trusted them and loved them and always thought they would, protect her, that they would make bad people go away, not be the bad people. She didn't ever think she had to worry about you guys, did she, Dawn? I mean, yeah, she had to worry about you guys doing a lot of bad stuff to her, but she didn't ever think she had to worry about you going that far. I don't think she ever realized that you go that far. But you did, didn't you? Oh, sure you did. That's my opinion. I'm going to keep it. You plotted against this little girl, cut all of her hair off and shamed her and embarrassed her. Man, you guys were out to break her spirit and still destroy her to the fullest. To save what? Your own nasty, old, saggy ass. Right? Your old bag of nasty bones. You want to call yourself a Christian? Dude, I'm going to tell you something. In my opinion, you're going to hit Hades wide open when it's time for you to go. And it will be time at some time. Nobody gets out of this life alive, okay? The Lord will be calling your name and your damn number. How are you going to feel, Don Wells, when your number gets called and you see the eyes of your little girl looking at you that you so fucked over, along with your nasty old lady and her mother? Right? You guys got to be a special kind of fucking evil. You had to be a special kind of evil just to cut her hair off like you did. That's my opinion. You have to be a special kind of freaking evil to be sitting around showering with your 4 or 5-year-old daughter, doing things that makes another man that was in your house demand that she be taken out of that shower, doing things that actually made a 911 call and the child screaming for someone to help it. And it had a worthless mom in there that did nothing, right? So the child had to start screaming for someone else to help it. Bitch, you wouldn't want to know me, Don Wells. Trust and believe that. Because if I was in that house with that little girl screaming, I'm going to tell you what, I'd have been all over your ass. You better trust and believe that. You wouldn't have been in no shower with Summer had I been around there. You're disgusting. You're disgusting, and your old lady's freaking disgusting for allowing it. There you go. I heard that 911 call. We all did. Oh, you're not God. You better be, you know what? You better be damn glad I'm not God. Because if I was God, you guys would already be in hell. There you go. Okay, Don Wells? You'd already be there. So you better be glad. You better get on your knees and pray and thank God that I wasn't him. Because I wouldn't tolerate your evilness. There you go. And I'm going to tell you something. Only thing God's doing is letting you self-destruct. There you go. How about that? You and your old lady. You're just self-destructing, just like the rest of them evil bastards that were around you. The ones that went with you to look for Mr. Dobbs. And you couldn't find him, thank God. The one that told you to drive the Subaru so that you'll have Starlink as an extra alibi. The one that told you to cut Summer's hair off because their family done went through some shit like that. Right? You thought all these people were handing you good advice. I'm going to tell you the best advice you could have got, Don Wells. You want to know the best advice you could have got? Was to get your ass really with the Lord and your Savior and not be doing evil stuff to your daughter. To love her like a real dad would and care about her like a real dad would and protect her like a real dad would. That little girl should have been daddy's princess, and no one should have been putting their hands on her, not even you. No one. And you should have seen to it. Because that's what real daddies do. Okay? But you ain't a real fucking daddy, was you? You were a piece of shit. And your old lady wasn't no real mommy. She's a piece of shit too. All you guys cared about was your freaking habit. Your habit, Don Wells. Was it worth it, bitch? Was it worth it? That's what I want to know. Why don't you answer that? Since you're in here running your sut. Okay? Answer that. Come on. We already put up with enough of your bad breath. We're waiting. We're waiting. Don Wells didn't give Summer to anybody. Don Wells was using up his daughter for his own self-gain, and he was allowing other people to use up his daughter too. He said he said out of his own mouth, out of Don Wells' mouth, and Candace was cracking up laughing. Out of Don's own mouth, he said, my boss called me, and my boss was upset that I sold a tape for $5,000 of my boss, S.A., my daughter, Summer. He said that you sold that video and people's going to be calling me a child essayer now. And Don thought that was so funny. So basically, Don Wells came out and admitted that he wasn't only having at his daughter, which we found out that through the 911 call, right? When the little girl was screaming and scared. And Candace said he's always hurting Summer. And then Jose told, filled in the blanks in the shower, and he was demanding her to be taken out because, of some sinister stuff he was hearing or seeing. So, and we had True talking about the shower too, and we had Jody Sue talking about the shower, And this little girl, Don didn't want to sleep with Candace. He wanted to sleep with Summer. Right? Just let's get it out on the table, man, because it's the truth. He didn't care where that big blob of Candace went or slept. That's why she was out trying to sleep with every other kid, 13, 14, 15 years old. A real man wouldn't want her. They wasn't about to smell that stench. She she's as bad as Don, trying to get little boys, just trying to get them little boys, because nobody else would smell that stench. She wanted to groom those little boys with that stank booty. It's just, it's just how it is. Both of them, just evil, but nasties. That's my opinion, and I'll keep it. And something happened. Something happened to that little girl. That little girl got real sick. I don't know if, one of the freaks they were letting have at her went too far, or they went too far. I have no idea. Can you imagine what these people do to a child? Do you imagine what they do to a child downstairs? Because, it's too graphic. It's too graphic to tell you what these people do. But a little 4 or 5-year-old child can't take that kind of abuse. And that little girl was sick. She was all hunched over. She couldn't even, when she's on the slip and slide, she couldn't even get up on her own. Her brother had to be down there helping her up, right? The poor child. Just saying. Just saying, you guys. It's too graphic. But we do know that Summer was looking very, very sick. And if they took her to a hospital, because, a hospital can tell if a child has just been done like that, or if it has been done multiple times, right? And because of scarring tissue and everything. And with Summer, being multiple times, and it sounds like multiple people, somebody's going to prison, and they knew it. And I truly believe, that's why Candace, picked Hunter up that day. He was up waiting. I think they was all in on it. I think they already knew what, the plan, and they all carried out their part. That's just my opinion. Oh, I believe the boys were. On the on the Find Summer Wells right now, on Find Summer Wells, they posted up, and dear DCS, you obviously do not want Josie to have a great education. Then he wants to tell the name of the school, right? Your silence is deafening. I'm going to tell you what. That boy don't want to come back. If that boy wanted to come back, he could ask to be emancipated at the age of 16 and go wherever he wants to go and do whatever he wants to do, since it doesn't seem like, since it doesn't seem like he's getting, in a permanent place. So he could ask the court to do that. But they're not, he's not asking because he don't want to go back. He would rather stay where he's at, a clean place where he's, getting the professional help that he needs. He's getting 3 square meals a day, right? He's getting a lot of friends. He's getting a lot of food. He's getting a good roof over his head. He's able to sleep at night without, people screaming or fighting or carrying on, and law enforcement getting called and all the bullshit going on. He don't have to live in that trauma and terror anymore. and neither does his brothers, and they don't want to go back. This is their choice. It's not, it's the boy's choice. He's saying, I ain't leaving and go back to that hell house ever again. I will stay here, and I will wait till I'm of age, and I will get a job, and I will live out on my own. I'm not going back there. There is no line that he wouldn't cross. That's absolutely true. He can say all he wants about Fred Hill, but he didn't have to listen to Fred. And the last time I checked, Fred's daughter and his other children by Laura, they're all still here. They're all still alive. And they're all still, thriving normally as children should be. The last time I checked, Jody Sue's children were still here, still thriving like children should be. Right? All of these people's kids are still here. Even Marlena Crawford's daughter, still here, still thriving like a normal child. The only ones that isn't still here, thriving like a normal child, is Don and Candace Wells' child, their little girl who is missing. Right? That's the only one. And they've already let us know that she's not alive. We'll see her in the resurrection. I hate to say this, but I gotta put Summer aside, and I gotta focus on my boys, because they're still here and alive, and I gotta try and get them back. Right? They're still here and alive. Meaning Summer's not. Summer always be with me. Yeah. Right over there in Morrison Cemetery where them two flowers was, on top of someone else's grave. Right? On top of somebody else's grave. Not Summer's name on the tombstone. But what, in my opinion, is a shared grave. Only thing is Summer is, was buried first. Somebody else on top of her. I'm surprised that Don ain't over there trying to chisel Summer's name on that tombstone. Right? I'm surprised that they wasn't over there trying to chisel her name on it somewhere. To be honest. I think they didn't want Summer found. I think they didn't want her found because they didn't want any money wasted on letting her be put in her own place. That's my opinion. I don't think they wanted to, let any money. They want all the money to go to them. They didn't want, to put any money towards putting their daughter, and even and if they let her been found, say, they would have let her be found somewhere. They'd have put her out somewhere so she could have been found. They would have still been going to prison because of all the scarred up tissue that shows, extensive long-term abuse. So they'd have still been going to prison. That's why, they completely disposed of her. I hoping to God she won't ever be found by nobody.
Why would Fred insert himself into this missing child? My daughter. My Summer. Why? All these people, why are they inserting themselves in this? Do they all have something to do with it? I mean, because in my brain, I'm thinking, okay, you're going to insert yourself in my daughter missing, but yeah, you're going to call like you had nothing to do with it. So why are you putting yourself there? And I know for a given fact that, not saying names, but I know for a fact that woman is only wanting cash so she can get her next hit.
I know that that woman's only wanting cash so she can get her next hit. I'm going to tell you something, Candace. Boy, is that like, you know, one cooker calling the other cooker a name, right? The pot talking to the kettle. Don Wells told me himself that the only reason that he was risking staying out here, possibly ending up in prison, was because you was getting all that money coming in and pushing him to do so. You was getting that Cash App, that Venmo, that PayPal, all those free stuff coming up there from all them different places, all them gift cards that Jody Sue thought she should be getting half of for saying there was a screen when there wasn't none, her and her son. Right, Candace? Because you got a hold of her trying to get her to change the time of that screen to more fit the timeline because it didn't fit it at all when you guys were looking stupid. Yeah. I'm brilliant, ain't I? I'm brilliant because I knew the minute I told your old man that he was looking stupid, because Don don't like to look stupid. I knew the minute that I told him that, I would irate him. I knew the minute I told him that, I would also be able to calm him down because I was going to hang up. And he don't like people hanging up on him either. And I knew I had him in the bag. And then I explained calmly how it didn't work. And that it should have been later. And it would have sounded better. And I knew what he would do, and he did it. He got off the phone. He called your dumb ass. He was irate with you. Jody Sue needs to change it. And you did exactly what I figured. Got right on the phone. Got right to Jody Sue. And she wasn't about to change up nothing because they didn't believe it in the first place. Oh, shit. You guys like to play people you got played. Right? That's what education does for people, Candace. Criminal minds. Criminal minds always get fucking busted. Because why? You're just not that damn smart. You're just that damn smart. They got people out here way smarter than you. Way smarter than you. You're not intelligent at all. You guys had no idea. No idea. That you were actually talking to someone that was righteous and truly invested in finding this little girl. That's where you made your mistake. And at some point, she's going to be found. She's going to be brought home. And justice will get served, Candace. Trust and believe that. It will get served.
Because that's how they are. I don't know, I'm just so over all these people that want to be so involved in all this. If you want to be so involved, why don't you help find her instead of putting yourself, oh, I know where she is. Oh,
Bitch, why wasn't you trying to help find her? She was your daughter, okay? Why wasn't you trying to? Oh, that's right, because you already know what happened, right? You were at the swimming hole. You was there, right, Candace? And you was there when you went up on the hill and gaslighted your sons with some brutal shit right there, wasn't it, Candace? Calling one of the kids actually by name, acting like the daughter went into the house when she didn't go in at all. And then you went in there and you made that child feel like it had something to do with this little girl coming up gone because he was being a kid instead of a parent. Yeah, you are brutal, a brutal fucking human being to do something so sinister to your child. And even more sinister, what you did to the one that didn't ever come into the house, right, Candace? That's my opinion. I'll keep it. Yeah, out there stuffing that little girl in a black tote. How do we know that? Oh, we know it because you said black tote when it was brown boxes. You fucked up and you said black tote when it was brown boxes. And that is why what gets you caught up and get you put in prison. And at some point you will be. Some point you will be. That's my opinion too. And meeting up with Chad Arnold, who actually is the one that digs graves and has all to do with them cemeteries. And like Andy Bernard said, you want to get rid of somebody, do it when there's an open grave. And there was one right across the street. Perfect opportunity to set everything up and get it done, wasn't it? And Don Wells felt, damn, that is a brilliant idea. She ain't going to ever be found. That was so brilliant. I'm going to brag about it. I'm going to let people know with my crooked little shitty smile that no, she ain't going to ever be found. Like he done such a good damn job. Well, he didn't do the good job. Andy Bernard did the good job, telling him to drive the vehicle to save his ass, to, you know, get it done now while the open grave's over there and you guys got connections to be able to get her put down in there. Andy Bernard and Fred Hill were the two brains of your operation, not you, Don Wells, and Candace Wells. You two idiots, all you did is you allow your family to be used and abused by a bunch of evil human beings and destroyed to the point there's no coming back from it. The mother freaking laugh is on you. It's on you guys. You might sit there and think you're laughing, but those evil people surrounding you that was using and abusing you all up to the max, including your children, they're the ones laughing at your asses. They're laughing at you. Yeah, I bet that wiped the smell off your damn faces, didn't it? Cuss me all you want to. But the truth hurts, don't it? The truth hurts. You didn't have no brilliant mind. If you had a brilliant mind, your kids would have been safe like Fred's was, and like Andy Bernard's was, and like actually Marlena Crawford's child was. Your kids would have been safe too, because you wouldn't ever put your hands or let anyone else put thirst to your children. You didn't appreciate what God gave you. You're disgusting.
Oh, this guy did a dead guy on that.
Oh, yeah. That poor guy was a victim to your all's evilness as well. Just like he told his family, if anything happened to him, he wanted them to know that old Freddie boy had something to do with Summer Wells' disappearance. He wanted everybody to know that Fred had info on it. Right? It got talked about. It got talked about. Right? Tell him to hit that like button, girlfriend. That's what I'm talking about. He's going to come in here and he needs to hit that thumbs up. Absolutely. Cotton was a victim to all of this too. I'm sure he was up there. I'm sure he heard all kinds of stuff. And he was afraid. He was afraid with the information he held. That's why he was talking with his family. And I think when he went there with all that money, when he showed up with that money, I think it was just a double dividend for them evil fucks. They followed him all right. I think they followed him. In my opinion, they followed him, they robbed him, and they unlived him. That's my opinion. Looky there. There you go. Old Freddie boy, man, when Cotton showed up, old Freddie boy, he had his freaking binoculars out looking at that freaking wad, right? He was like, dang, my regular eyes, you know, just can't focus in on how big that mother freaking knot in his pocket was, right? He had to get his binoculars out and get a real good look at how big that roll was, right? He was like, I need to see that money, moolah, 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 right? Bring it on. There it is. He's like, oh yeah, I gotta make sure I give this boy some good stuff. So it won't be hard to take that away from him later, right? And there you go. Look at that. Got all of his cigarettes too. Hell, the money wasn't enough. They had to get all the cigarettes. Oh, and that ain't even the half of it. I also heard that, and by a very good source, I also heard that Fred Hill's sister found money. She found money, like a good sum of money, up in Fred's mother's home, up in the home, and turned it over to law enforcement because she believed it was Cotton Simpson's money. She turned it over to law enforcement because she believed that it belonged to Cotton, that Fred had hid it. Yeah, yeah, and I got receipts to that. I have receipts. But his cigarettes were took too. And the two people, and listen to this, because the two people that knew Cotton Simpson, they know Fred and Laura too. And they hang out at Fred and Laura's house back at this time. And they said that, they seen Fred and Laura, and Fred and Laura was smoking the same brand that Cotton Simpson had on the seat of his car. The same exact cigarettes. And they believed that they belonged to Cotton because they didn't ever see Fred and Laura smoking that brand before. But they had a ton of them and they were smoking them up. Yeah, they told, and they told law enforcement that too. They told that to law enforcement. There's Fred. Fred's like, shoot, you know, he must have those binoculars. He must have had those binoculars in his hand. Now we know what he came up behind Cotton with. Right? Now we know what he came up behind old boy with. That's my opinion. Poor Cotton. Man, it'd have been better for him to left his money in the bank. Right? He should have been looking for a front, acting poor. Pulled a couple dollars out of his dirty sock. Yeah. And they say his car wasn't running. Hell, I can understand that. They probably freaking pulled all the wires out for the copper, right? They got the cigarettes, probably trying to scrap looked like they already scrapped the door. They was like dismantling the whole vehicle. They was probably dismantling the whole damn vehicle so that, to the scrap yard. But I heard Cotton's car was still running. I heard that somebody picked it up and drove it to his place. So, nobody said his car was ever broke down. They said his car was drivable and it was perfectly parked as if he was trying to visit up, that cemetery that he had loved ones in. It was perfectly parked. Yeah. That's how these people operate right here, right? That's how they operate, y'all. Take a look at it. This is how they operate on people. You can't trust them. You can't trust them. They be coming up behind you and shit. Just saying. I believe that 165 Ben Hill Road is for sale. Well, it went up for auction in June. 165 went up for auction in June.
I'm just going by what Cotton told me. I don't know 100%. I wasn't there, so I don't know. I'm just going by what Cotton said.
No, I mean, as far as she was saying that he was in jail on Summer. Well, what I don't know what she's saying. It's not possible because is she saying this voice isn't possible for it to be his? Because we don't know when this video was taken.
Cotton stated to me that he was on the hill earlier the day someone went missing.
Oh, did you guys hear that? Listen, he don't know what happened to Summer. Fred don't know what happened to Summer. Listen to this.
What she's saying is it's not possible because is she saying this voice isn't possible for it to be his? Because we don't know when this video was taken.
Cotton stated to me that he was on the hill the day earlier.
The day Summer was murdered?
Because we don't know when this video was taken.
Cotton stated to me that he was on the hill the day earlier today.
That Summer got murdered. There you go. Murdered. Summer got murdered. He doesn't know. They all know. They all know. Every last one of them knows. Every last one of them knows. And then he said this. A Simpson will be arrested for Cotton Simpson's robbery and unliving. It's a woman, he said. It's a woman. And they said, crap, no. So he was family and law enforcement also. Good grief. But I don't know whose red truck that was. An old picture of it. If you know this much, then law enforcement did this whole time and did shit about Summer and all the rest. And there he, head drug task force. This is why Hawkins County isn't over Summer's case now. There you go. He don't know whose red truck it was. I thought it was Jody Sue's mother's. I thought it was, all of these different people's truck. You know what I think? I think there was no red truck. That's what I think. I heard Don Wells came up with the red truck bullshit. Nobody else. That's what I'm hearing. And Robin Lane crossed it off. Robin Lane put an X over it. Obviously because, she knew that it was bullshit too. She knew it was bullshit too. And let's listen to Don.
Oh. Fred Hill. I don't want to say anything bad, but he, how can I say this? I don't. He starts to throw everybody off. Let's just put it that way. He's throwing everybody off.
Is there a possibility that Fred Hill could have done something?
It is possible. He left out about the time Summer disappeared to take off all that scrap metal. I don't know. It's possible.
You hear that? You hear that? Don Wells putting Fred under the bus, right? It is possible. He was hauling that scrap metal off about the time she disappeared. No, he wasn't. He wasn't hauling no scrap metal off about the time Summer came up missing, because Summer wasn't supposed to come up missing until 5:55, 6 o'clock. And the scrapyard would have already been closed an hour. It would have been closed for a whole hour. I know. He wasn't scrapping that late. Absolutely not. So, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. But these are the games these people play. They accuse each other, act like they're pissed off at each other, when in real reality and truth, they're all getting together, laughing, thinking all of this is funny, and the way they're doing, and the way they're, the bullshit they're doing. They think it's hilarious. They're giving you a whole lot of truth, and they're giving you a whole lot of lies, and they're hoping that you can't decipher between the two of them. And that, and they can just sit back and just get off on all the evil they've done and ain't going to prison for yet. They're really sick. These are monsters, man. These are some evil, monstrous people. That's my opinion. I'll keep it. Right there's Laura. Hey, when you guys hauled a car off and was late getting there, did you guys bring car back? No, we made it on time. Laura says, right there's her picture. No, we made it on time. Now, Fred says they weren't scrapping cars. At the beginning, they were scrapping cars, but we heard they made it to the scrapyard, and then they didn't make it, right? They didn't make it on time, and then, they did make it on time. At one point, Laura said they made it on time. They got the money. They went to the store. That's what held them up coming back. They stopped to get, some food and some things they needed. And then they headed back into Ben Hill Road. And that's how they found out that Summer, the cops were everywhere. And that's how they found out Summer was missing. And, that was their initial bullshit. And then they said they didn't make it to the scrapyard, right? and had to bring the vehicle back. And then they said that they didn't scrap any vehicles, that they wasn't even scrapping that day because Andy Bernard kept blocking the whole road and, with this bull BS, and that they didn't do no scrapping. And when they did leave, they met up with some guy they never seen before that had a motorcycle. And then Fred went back, got his trailer thing, came back out and helped this guy take the vehicle to, to some kind of garage. And he didn't ever see the guy again, since then. He was just being a big good Samaritan, right? A big good Samaritan for somebody, some stranger on the road. And I don't see Fred going and getting a trailer, coming all the way back and hauling someone somewhere for nothing. I don't see that shit at all. Right? But then he said that, oh yeah, I do know the guy who had the motorcycle. I know that guy that had a motorcycle, and, and I took him to get it fixed, and, and telling that, it's a certain guy and everything, saying something about, I think it was either the guy that JLR was around or kin to the guy JLR was around, something. It seemed to do with that guy that JLR was running around with. And then, and then it just keeps changing. It just keeps changing what the hell they were doing on June the 15th, 2021, right? It keeps changing and changing and changing. You can't get the real fucking truth out of these people. So you really don't know where Fred and Laura was on June 15th, 2021, because they don't tell the truth good enough to know the truth. So we don't know. We don't know. We don't know if they were sitting that ass at home, waiting for, Candace was down there waiting for old Chad to come in, to show up and take her over to the cemetery. We don't know if they went over to the cemetery with her or not. We don't know. They could have went over there before. Chad showed up and actually dug the hole for the tote to go down into. We don't know where Fred and Laura was. Right? I believe that Fred Hill is a suspect just like everyone else. Yes, I do. And I believe that, I don't know what all he had to do with Summer's case. I believe he did have some things to do with Summer's case. Yes, I do. I don't know what all, but I think he did, he did talk to Don, and that's why Summer's hair was all cut off. I think he was, I think he had his paws in it. Yes, I do. Along with Andy and some other people. But I'm going to tell you what, I do think that, where it comes to Cotton Simpson, I think, in my opinion, Fred's guilty as hell. I think he's guilty as hell of taking out Cotton Simpson. That's my opinion. And I think it wasn't, I don't know if they had another guy with them, but I think it was Fred and Laura for sure. I think it was Fred and Laura for sure. Because Fred, when Laura was talking to me, Fred told Laura if she didn't quit talking to me, that she was going to end up in jail. That he was going to put her in jail. He was threatening her with jail. So what does he got on her? What does he have on her? Was she the one that picked something up and landed it? Where Fred was able to tell law enforcement it had been landed? I don't know. I mean, Fred seemed to know where this guy was hit. That, to be taken out. Fred was the last one, and Fred admitted to following him. To follow him now, he says, "Oh no, I didn't follow him that day. It was a day or so before," because he's trying to separate himself from the day that it truly happened on, and he truly followed this guy. And that's what they do. You know, it's kind of like Hunter trying to make Summer wet and him dry when we know his ass was wet out there in the water as well, right? And this is the games and the jargon. This is the fucking jargon that these guys want to do to try to, you know, manipulate everybody and still, you know, and get away with their dirty crimes, and still be out here, you know, bullshitting people for attention and everything. It's disgusting. Absolutely damn disgusting. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know, you guys. I'm sick of their damn, you know, games and their double fucking talk, their double talk, bullshit, and nothing but pure lies in this little 5-year-old girl, in this little 5-year-old child, innocent child's missing case. I'm done. You know, I'm done with it. I'm done with sitting around hearing them continue to play games with her case. I think that, you know, if they can't put up, then they need to shut up, right? If they can't put up the truth and tell the truth and help this child be found, then they just need to shut up. Because we don't want to hear all their bullshit. We're done hearing their bullshit. They lie so damn much they can't even keep the story. They have to make up different stories because they can't keep the first one they told straight. It's just insane, right? It's insane. Laura, the day that Summer came up missing, was you at home or was you with Fred?
I was with Fred. We was hauling cars.
You were hauling cars that day? And
yep.
So Chad was at your property?
He come in while we was going to the crusher. And he seen Candace at the end of the driveway. And he said that we started up a hill, and she turned around and looked at him and said, "Do you know if they're home?" And he said, "Well, their truck's not there." And said she turned around, walked back down there, and got in her truck. Didn't even knock on the door or nothing.
Wow. Y'all feel like the
so and what time was that?
I think he said it was about 3:30 or 4.
There you go. 3:30, 4 o'clock. 3:30, 4 o'clock. And that's right on the money. That's right on the money, you know, with you know, it fits the same timeline as Marlena. It fits the same timeline. You know, law enforcement said that Candace came off the property after she got back. You know, she got back at like 3:30. Between 3:30 and 6:30, she had to come off the property, you know, two times. She came back off the property, you know, at about 6:30, but she had came off the property. We know between 4 o'clock, which really was like 4:30, to be honest with you. It was more like 4:30. She came off the property between 4:30 and 5:30. She came off about 4:30 and didn't get back onto the property till about 5:30. So she was gone somewhere for a full complete hour. A full complete hour. She's gone somewhere. Now, with Chad Arnold, she followed Chad. And she was gone a full complete hour. with, she left behind him. So wherever they went, they were there for an hour before she got back to the hill. And that sounds like more than likely they went over to the cemetery and, maybe had to dig a little bit more here and there to fit the toad in and to actually get it cut, all covered up and everything, the way it was. And she may have had to go somewhere else to wash her hands. She might have not have wanted none of the cemetery dirt being found on her property. So she might have had to go somewhere, to shake out her clothes and wash her hands, try to make sure, she don't have, in case they wanted to take samples or anything. She, because dirt can change. Dirt can change, they might not find the same dirt in one person's yard as they would another person's yard. Sometimes dirt can tell a story, right? They can tell what areas it comes from. If they can find, if they can get mud or something off of someone's shoe, it can, it can tell, sometimes it can tell if it was a certain area that mud came from. No, that's for real. People have actually been, law enforcement has actually solved cases by finding, going into someone's home and finding the same type of dirt that was at the crime scene on their shoes. Candace was driving. She was in Grandis's vehicle when she was spotted on the surveillance camera. And when they got Chad Arnold, Chad wasn't going to talk to law enforcement. They had to go get him. They had to go get Chad. And then Chad told that, yes, Candace followed him, that he did see her at Fred's. And yes, she did follow him, out of Ben Hill Road onto Beach Creek. But then he said he didn't know where she went from there. And he said that she told him that her little girl was already missing. No, she didn't, Amanda. She was seen walking over to Morrison Cemetery. She was headed over to Morrison Cemetery when Don Wells came up with the truck and, and got her in the truck. Because there was some creators out there. There were some creators on the road who spotted her. And he went and got her because, that would have gave away where Summer was. So he went and got her ass and got her in the truck. And, and then they made up a story that he had made her mad and she was walking away. No, she was walking to the cemetery when Don Wells got news that there's some creators down there on Ben Hill Road, and he had to go get Candace before these creators watched her go somewhere that, was going to possibly put them in prison, and that was Morrison Cemetery. That's my opinion. I'm going to keep it. Oh, Jody Sue knew everything. Jody Sue knew exactly what was going down, why it was going down. She knew the whole ball game. Her and Andy had a dog in the race. And when he put a ring on that other woman's finger, Jody Sue gave it out. Andy was supplying the stuff. According to Jody Sue, Andy was supplying the stuff to sedate these little girls so that they could be touched. She gave it out. She gave out exactly what was going on at Ben Hill Road. And I'm telling you, all the evidence that we looked at, we've been over, we've seen how, yeah, it points directly to that, to exactly what she said. No doubt. Oh, yeah, they do. Andy's the one that told Don to make sure he drove that dang Subaru for the Starlink so he would have an extra alibi that day. And Andy drove a car that had GPS too to save his ass to work. And they both stayed at work. You know, these are people that don't ever stay at work. But they stayed at work the whole day that day. Because they did know what was going down. That's my opinion too. And I'll keep it. That's probably the only day Andy had worked a full day since he started that job. No doubt. Andy's a weirdo. That all of those people was in, you know, every last one of them. And they're still corresponding together. They're still corresponding together. And you think law enforcement don't know it? Absolutely, they know it. Trust me, the feds are watching their asses like hawks. This baby's case ain't going to go unsolved because Ronnie ain't going to let it for one. He wants that case solved and he don't care who it costs. He don't care what comes out in the wash. He wants it solved. And TBI wants it solved. And the feds want it solved. And I'm going to tell you, they're going to get it solved. They're going to get it solved. One way or another, they're going to do it. Tennessee is tired. Tennessee law enforcement is tired of looking like a bunch of boobs. They're tired of it. And they're going to get off their backsides and they're going to start working overtime to get these cases where they got to be. And that's in a courtroom getting prosecuted. Trust and believe that. But I've overstayed my welcome here tonight, you guys. I kept you long enough. I'd like to went through some more things. But you know what? We can pick up where we left off. Tomorrow evening, we can pick up where we left off. Or no. Yeah. Tomorrow night, I will be in here. I don't come in on Fridays. Man, I want it to be Friday so bad. All right. I was thinking Friday. Tomorrow might be Friday. Nope. But I'm wanting it to be Friday. Trust me. I am wanting it to be Friday. I look so forward to my weekends. I've had a hard week, you guys. So, PG is going to get out of here, let you guys get some rest. But not before I asked you. Please, please, please keep the prayers going up for Summer Moon Utah Wells. Keep them going up, you guys, because I know God's listening. He's pulling this to the light. We know so much more now than we did before. And he is pulling it to the light. And that's what's angering these people. These people just don't pop up. They don't just pop up unless you're saying something. Unless you're saying something that's getting to them. That's when they pop up. It's when you're saying, you know, you got to be tapping on You got to be tapping on some truth or they won't show up. And they're showing up. So, with that being said, your prayers are being heard. Trust me. Anytime you bow your head and you pray in the holy name of Jesus Christ, God hears you. And we serve a big and a mighty God. And I'm going to tell you, He's answering. This case, I can't tell you how brutal this case is. It sounds like it could be pretty brutal, to be honest with you. I mean, you ever hear somebody say sometimes it's better not to know? It's better not to know what happened. And this could be one of those cases. This could be. It might be so damn disturbing that it may have been better not to know. But humans have a need to know, right? We have a need to know. And I'm going to tell you something. I think if you really want to know, God's going to let you know. If you really do, He's going to let you. So keep those prayers going up for Summer Moon Utah Wells, so that we can get her found, brought home, justice served. I'm going to tell you, sometimes you can't get things done without God. You know? And I think this is one of those times. So keep it going up. I think He's pulling it, the truth to the light little by little. Because I think there's some people out here ain't going to be able to handle the truth. And that is the truth. I think that, I don't think we know even half of what this little girl was put through. I think we're going to be very shocked if and when they find her. I think we're going to be very shocked at how much she was put through. Yeah, I'm talking like knock your socks off your feet. Shocked. I think Summer went through a whole lot of stuff we know nothing about. But keep those prayers going up for this little girl. And keep them going up for Sebastian Rogers. Keep them going up for Michael Vaughn. Keep them going up for the Idaho Forge families. The trial might be over, but the pain and suffering and sorrow, man, is still fresh. So pray for those people, that God gives them some peace somehow, some way. And pray for little Jack and Lily Sullivan. Beautiful babies, still haven't been found, still have not been found. There was a man that went out to Jack and Lily Sullivan's grandmother's house. He acted like he was going to buy a horse trailer, and he got a whole lot of information out of the step grandpa that's married to the grandmother. A whole lot of information. And maybe tomorrow, after we cover summer, maybe we can cover a little bit of that and some of the Idaho 4 case after we cover summer. So I'll be back tomorrow, God willing. God willing, we'll be back here tomorrow. And hopefully, you know, there's more opening up all the time, more information coming out, more stuff surfacing. There's some more stuff surfacing, you know, coming out and surfacing. And I'm going to bringing it to the table as well tomorrow night. So just stay tuned. We're going to get it done. I'm not going to let people use Little Summer. I'm not going to let her be used any longer for click, likes, and views. I'm not going to stand by and let people play games, lie, and bullshit in this baby's case. She don't deserve that. This little girl deserves the utmost respect. And she deserves the truth. And she deserves to be found, brought home, and justice served against these evil beings. And we're going to do all we can to see that happens. Good night, everybody. God bless. Much love.